were in a county at the time, was a dry county, damp, we called it. You had to take your own bottle, and there was only like one restaurant in the whole county that you could have wine with dinner. I was quite certain it was not going to be legal to make wine in a dry county, but it was. And so April Fool's 2006, we opened the doors to Girls Gone Wine with no plan for success.
Hi, I'm Dave Deken, and welcome to OKLApreneur. If you live on our red dirt and want to learn about building a business from our fellow Oklahomans who've put in the hard work and hours to do it, then you're in the right place. Many people think that the creative process has to start with large dry erase boards and rooms full of people who want to make a lot of money. Well, the truth is, the creativity and inspiration can happen anywhere, like on a trip with your best friends. Coming up, we'll learn how a weekend trip to Texas would be the motivation for what would become a destination in Southeast Oklahoma.
She said, hey, look, there's a downtown winery, let's go. And so we wandered into this downtown Dallas winery that's not there anymore, but it was called Swirl. And made 2 batches of wine, which was their concept. And you go back, 12 weeks later or whatever to bottle, cork, and foil that wine. And Chandra said, hey, we should just do this.
OKLApreneur is made possible by these sponsors who believe in growing Oklahoma through small businesses.
We are Oklahoma's electric cooperatives, powering the needs of new generations with safe, affordable, reliable, and environmentally responsible power.
Most of the time, inspiration hits you when you're not even looking for it. For 3 ladies in Southeast Oklahoma, their inspiration for a business hit them on a weekend trip to Texas. Join me as we learn from 2 of the 3 OKLApreneurs from Girls Gone Wine in Hochatown about turning their vision of just having fun into a real business opportunity. Tell me about Girls Gone Wine. Where did it start? How did it come about?
So yeah, it started on a girls trip. Chandra and Rhonda and I went, and Rhonda's not here today, we're so sorry about that, but headed to Dallas on a girls trip, and we checked into the hotel. There was a book on the table, and Chandra had just got back from Napa or Sonoma.
Napa.
And she said, hey, look, there's a downtown winery, let's go. And so we wandered into this downtown Dallas winery that's not there anymore, but it was called Swirl. Made a batch of wine and made 2 batches of wine. I think we drank a little.
A lot.
Made 2 batches of wine, which was their concept. And you go back, 12 weeks later or whatever to bottle, cork, and foil that wine. And at some point in the process, I always say we're not sure whose idea it was, and that's Chandra's cue to say.
It was mine.
Yes. But Chandra said, hey, we should just do this. And I said, hey, I was thinking we should not do this. We were in a county at the time, was a dry county, damp, we called it. You had to take your own bottle, and there was only like one restaurant in the whole county that you could have wine with dinner. And I was quite certain it was not going to be legal to make wine in a dry county, but it was. And so April Fool's 2006, we opened the doors to Girls Gone Wine with no plan for success. It was just,
We were going to have a pink leather sofa, sit on that, watch some Sex and the City reruns, drink, tell our husbands we were working. That was our business
that was
plan.
the business plan.
And now the husbands come in and help when we get really busy.
Yeah.
So take me back to the first year. Your goal is just to sit around, watch Sex and the City on a pink couch, watch traffic go by, enjoy your wine. But at some point you said, well, let's see if we can make some money with this. How did that transition?
I didn't really.
We never said that, I don't think. I think what
we thought
happened.
we were going to make money.
So Terry, my husband, had taken like a yellow notepad and he jotted out. It was just the way his brain worked. Him and Chandra are more so the business people. And he had said, if you sell 10 bottles a day on average, and your average price is this, you can pay the mortgage. Which
So we're like, yay, 10 bottles a day.
we can do that. We were only open 3 days a week at that point. And
We each had a day, which meant no Sex in the City because we all had other jobs,
Right.
and we were just, sitting around up here one day a week, each one of us.
I took Saturdays. I think Rhonda took Friday because Chandra's son played sports, and so she took Thursday. And I think we didn't have an office, we didn't have anything, but one day Terry came in the kitchen where our desk was and said, ladies, we have a problem. We said, what's the problem? He said, you sold 150 bottles of wine last weekend or week or something. And we were like, woohoo! And he said, not woohoo, we're going to run out of wine.
As business began to grow, making decisions became a top priority. It was important that all 3 ladies played to their strengths.
And I think every single step of the way, everything from down to our gift shop, which is insane. And when we go to gift market, which we're doing again this January, every decision we make is about not taking ourselves too seriously and having fun.
We can make fun of ourselves. And we can make fun of everyone else, and we do that in our gift shop. I mean, we have the most. We kind of laugh if it's a derogatory remark about your girlfriend. It sells really well in there because it's girls buying presents for girls.
Yes, it's irreverent. If it's irreverent and bright colored, it's perfect for Girls Gone Wine, and that's been a huge recipe for success. And that's primarily Chandra's Lane. One of the successes we've experienced is that with 3 women owners, one of the first things locals said was, "This will never work." 3 women in business, never going to work. Right. They're not going to get along, and here we are, 14 years this April Fools.
Be 14
years. And it's because we have lanes. And so Chandra's Lane is that irreverent, sassy gift shop, and just, and the same with the VIP tasting room. When we designed this, we went to the local furniture store and said we knew we needed purple couches, which were hard to find. Right. And when we finally found these, they were like, "Really? You want that?"
Everybody's like, "Oh, those together, the turquoise and orange."
But if you let our color scheme and our fun, it's really, I don't remember a time that we haven't had fun in the 14 years.
Me either.
Why does a business like this work in Southeast Oklahoma, or in Oklahoma in general? I mean, there are a number of laws that may not have been as friendly towards a beverage. How have you been able to navigate those outlets?
Well, there's 2 answers. One, the reason we're so fortunate, so blessed to be located in Southeast Oklahoma, where tourism is robust and amazing. I mean, if we were depending on the local population, Broken Bow's about 4,500 people, Idabel's about 8,000, this would not be happening. But we have a huge, strong tourism industry. So one of the reasons we're fortunate is we're located in a place where we're getting 10 to 15,000 people every weekend that are new blood coming in. As far as the laws go, one of the first laws, when we first opened, we did find out you could make wine in Oklahoma in any state, in any county, even though we were dry at the time. And the very first change I remember that was good for us was Texas opened up to allow us to start shipping wine in, and Oklahoma had already allowed us, I think, to ship 2 states that allowed it. Right. Now, it was illegal to ship to Oklahomans, which annoyed all of our Oklahoma customers. But I remember Texas opening up being kind of a big deal, and so being able to, our primary market's Texas, and so being able to ship out there, so that helped out the gate. That we could expand by shipping. We thought that would be a big chunk of our business. It's a small part, but it's kind of neat because people want to purchase wine when they go home. I think the biggest watermark in law changes was the last 2 years.
Definitely.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Grape Industry Council has been working hard. We're members of that and involved in that to the degree that pushing legislation to make things more friendly for state businesses. But it's not a business friendly. I mean, one of the issues with open a winery is the federal regulations and state, you have to have your location and then you get approved. So for most people, that is, you're paying rent, you're not making wine, you're sitting on a place waiting, and it took us 6 to 8 months, I think, to be fully legal. Wow. So that's sort of a hindrance, and I think it's still that way. You have to sort of have your premise, they have to approve it, and then you can make wine. So that was not so friendly, but things have changed. I mean, the limit on self-distribution. I mean, there's a lot of things favorable for alcohol businesses, especially since, I think we'll forget the number of the state question that passed.
Right.
But we started distribution this last fall, which is something we talked about for years. Yeah. So we're in liquor stores across Oklahoma.
As a small business owner, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out where to spend your time. How many hours need to be dedicated to what? For the ladies of Girls Gone Wine, knowing when to bring in the experts helped them make sure they would not get bogged down in the stuff they were not strong in, so they could focus on growing their business.
The alcohol side was tougher, and so we found there was a winery in Oklahoma. It's still, the name's still around, it's Summerside. They were based at the time in Veneta. It's now been sold and moved to Tuttle, but Gary and Marcia Butler owned that winery. They were big in the association at the time. I forget what it was called, but they offered to help wineries get started. They offered a workshop, and we drove up and sat through a very scintillating workshop on how to get all the federal paperwork done. And it seems like it was $800. We could pay, I don't know if that's right, but we could pay them $800 to do all that work with the TTB, the federal group, to get us legal. And we were like, sold, best money we ever spent, boom. And that was another philosophy that started early. Was I remember my husband mostly cautioning us, like, you know, if you can pay somebody that already knows what they're doing, it's really better use of your time. So down to, when I mentioned we shipped to 30 states, just the tax and getting legal with all that is a huge time commitment. And I could stay holed up in an office, and he would be the one that would say, you know, because I was fighting over, should we spend $150 a month for this software that does all that? He was like, that is a cheap employee. Get out on the floor, interact with customers, where you can make the money, you know, where you're much more valuable.
Okay, so what advice would you have for an Oklahoma entrepreneur that says, you know, I don't know if I want to dive into a business. I don't, regardless of what that jump may be. What would you say to them to either encourage them or to have them do some research before they did that?
My advice is, I tell people all the time, if you've got a full-time job like I did for the state of Oklahoma, figure out how to keep one foot in that security and put the other foot in the risk, which is what I did. I had partners that allowed me to do that. But I didn't have to just shuck my life. The book I'm listening to now says it doesn't have to be, I either have to be a state employee or a business owner. Insert the word and. I can keep my full-time job or drop back to part-time and take a gamble and give it a shot. And not, and in our case, my advice would be not to go in too deep on the front end. Just tiptoe in, test the waters. You know, look around, see what's missing, see what business might be a fit. That's probably the hardest part for people.
Right.
What should they do? But I think you don't have to do it either or. Right. I would say keep a secure chunk. I have benefits and things that go with that, and try that risk if that's what works for you.
Open 2 days a week if you have to.
Yeah, we opened 3. We opened during the busy tourist time.
Open the days you can and test the waters.
Could have been Saturday and Sunday in that scenario, which would have been good in a tourist industry like this.
Special thanks to Michelle and Chandra of Girls Gone Wine in Hochatown. If you'd like to hear the entire Girls Gone Wine interview, including how they invest in their staff and how that ensures an excellent experience for their customers, check out the OKLApreneur podcast on our website, OKLApreneur.com. OKLApreneur is made possible by our sponsors, like the Oklahoma Association of Electric Cooperatives, and we sincerely appreciate their belief in the impact small businesses have on the growth of Oklahoma. Until next time, let's get down to business, Oklahoma.